There aren't very many secrets left about the jungle, but there are some outrageous mechanics that you need to use along with the rest of your jungle ability to actually exploit every advantage you have against enemy junglers so you can jungle diff every single game. And so I got 16 of those facts and tips for you. Let me know how many you actually knew and which ones you didn't. And while it's really easy to start with the early game, let's start with something a little bit later on. What a lot of people don't actually know is that the Baron buff you have for the minions, you know, when they go all glowy and purple, they actually scale their movement speed off of your movement speed. That's right, so if you are a Virkayu with Baron buff, and you see your team doing some dumb stuff somewhere else, which we all know they do, and you want to maximize that split push into forcing them to base and deal with you, then you should actually use your E to really crash that wave as fast as possible. A really neat little trick for any champion like Hecarim's and things like that have movement speed boosts and higher movement speeds, and so you can actually go ahead and crash waves a lot faster than most normal champions. What this allows you to do is really apply great split pressure in games where you might not have the best teamfight advantage, and this is something that I use and explain to a lot of people who have these kinds of champions. Now here's something very interesting that I'm not seeing a lot of people actually register. We all know the old trick of being able to sneak around the top herald pit, or also the grub pit right now, by actually going around the top side of the wall, and of course you are unseen. Riot Games actually fixed that because I've seen a lot of junglers try to do it. I'm like, oh, well, thanks for revealing yourself. I appreciate that. And the general jungle tip, if you're struggling to be a jungle diff maker, is to let me help you and guide you with a deft hand that only makes jungle gods. And that means you need to head to Virkayu.gg. Not only do I have a free jungle improvement resource, I also have a dedicated program with jungle video courses, jungle coaching classes, a jungle VOD library, special weekly content you'll see nowhere else. All of this available through a premium jungle Discord, which is highly active, a huge community that help each other climb using my jungle program and courses. As we have seen by everybody hitting their peak rank goals in Split 1 and Split 2 of Season 14 as fast as possible. So to climb faster than everybody you know and to jungle diff every game you play, head to Virkayu.gg or click the link in the description below. This has been catching on just a little bit, but the Rift Herald / Baron has a debuff with which it makes you deal 50% less damage to that monster. And of course, this is huge for Rift Herald because now that debuff is absolutely massive and can really stretch how long it takes you to secure that Herald. And considering a lot of the times we take Herald between 14 and 20 are really to capitalize on map movements, you want to be in and you want to be out. But what a lot of people leave out is that it doesn't count for true damage, and there are some champions that can negate it entirely if you happen to be ranged or you play champions that have a pet mechanic. So as long as you simply do not get hit, you can do all the damage and basically one-shot it. While it makes sense that this works with Elise, Ivern, and Zyra with the pets, you can also happen to do it with, things like Brand. Obviously great fundamental champions that we all love to face. Riot Games, can we please really just gut his passive? Thank you. Cycling back to the early game for our fourth tip here, did you know that your pets might stop doing damage if you actually hit the smaller creature from the camp? It's very important to make sure you're using your spells correctly. If you have those AoE spells, you can of course focus on the giant monster. The secondary damage will hit those side monsters. But if you're a single target champion and you go ahead and hit that smaller creature too long, your pets just, might not actually work. And now you're thinking, what I'm thinking is that Riot Games, Talisman, and Hunter's Machete, those are great. Why didn't you just fuse them and have, oh wait, we did have that Spirit Stone in 2014. I think it's time to bring that stuff back, no? But here's one that most of you definitely do not know, and it's called the Dragon Buff of Suffering from Success. That's what I'm calling it. I don't actually know what it's really called. Well, actually, that's a lie too. It's called Ancient Grudge. The whole thing about this is that elemental dragons gain 20% bonus damage and 7% damage reduction per stack against enemies that have dragons. This will obviously stack 4 times once you get Soul to 80% bonus damage and 28% damage reduction. So the more dragons you do, the dragons do more damage to you and have more damage resistance against you. Basically, if you're snowballing a game, right, it's basically saying, how dare you destroy the enemy? We must make it harder for you to secure your soul. Which, come to think of it, is the absolute stupidest thing I can possibly imagine. Hey, I'm winning, so I should be punished. Great. That's wonderful. What a lot of people also don't know about the dragon is why is it so valuable in those negative games? I always tell everyone, okay, look, focus on the grubs, because if you're a good jungler, you're gonna maximize them and win the game from it. If you're a good jungler and you have to give up the grubs and give them to the enemy team, then you can simply prevent them from using it, right? It's the ultimate control card. However, when it comes to those games where you just simply have to focus on dragons, you can't even think about those grubs, remember that if you're a little bit behind, I made a video just about that the other day, if the team that slays a dragon has a lower average level than that of their opponents, they will receive a 25% bonus experience per average level difference. However, this bonus experience is also sharply increased for the lowest level members of the team. So if you're having a rough time and the enemy jungler is like, yes, I'm gonna dominate those grubs in your face, let him have it. Give it up, move on down, snack a dragon, and if you're behind a level or two, you're gonna get that benefit, especially if you're way behind in experience. And that's why I tell people not to force dragons, even as a Nunu, because you're gonna get pushed off, and then it's gonna be really obvious that you're gonna go to the grubs and you die. So while we do not focus hardcore on dragons in this particular meta, in this particular game state, they provide you a lot of actual bonus experience that you can use, but do remember the ancient grub suffering from success buff that we talked about just before. Next up, it's important to note that while when you're early clearing and you're doing your regular stuff and you have to smite camps, way too often I see 3 mega sins being committed. And I need to start off firstly with a very simple smite concept. Don't worry, the secret ones are going to come right afterwards. And no, I'm not going to speak about leash ranges and all that nonsense for 20 minutes. The first one is people smite at 400 HP, 300 HP. Just smite at 600 early on. Smite at 900. Why are you actually wasting spells and auto attacks and time when you could just smite it and move on with your life? If you are sure you are not going to be contesting anything in terms of the dragon, grubs, grump, blue, scuttle, wolves, it doesn't matter. If you know that you have it for free, and your champion has missing percentage HP damage spells, think your W on Echo passive, think just Warwick with his regular existence. My friends, smite first. Make sure that you are actually buffing up your damage so you can clear that camp quicker. I do not see this enough on Warwicks or Echoes, especially early on when there are no contests on those early camps. Now, of course, if you are going to coin flip the scuttle fight and flash in, if you're gonna go and try and steal a dragon and all these kinds of things, or you're worried about contests, then yes, save your smite for the fact that you need to secure it. But if you're simply a champion that does not have any missing percentage HP damage spells, then you can simply kite normally, do your clears normally, and smite as you fade away to the next camp. But if you have missing percentage HP, please use your smite up front. Oh, and on the note of obvious things that I think everybody knows, but maybe you don't actually pay attention to, when it's close to 20 minutes, please don't take your red and your blue buffs. Wait until the 20-minute mark passes so that everyone can get them. This is crucial if you want to go ahead and do an early Baron, or if you're actually going for the crucial dragon fight. Those buffs do such a lot of work for specific champions who might be mana hungry. Of course, your ADCs, top laners, and fighters all love red buff. Actually, just everyone in the game loves red buff. But I have seen mages go out of mana in these crucial 20 to 22-minute phases because a jungler couldn't wait a couple seconds or sequence in a better way to just give everyone the blue buff. When the enemy team doesn't have it and you have it, that's resources, and resources allow you to win more. That's right, it's true. Oh, did you also know that you can actually see the visual and sound effects of certain events out of the Fog of War randomly? This isn't always an obvious thing, but really what I'm just telling you to do is F key, click around. Hey, maybe they're doing the dragon, or hey, maybe they're doing the herald. You might see some Vi animations, you might just see the monster have some residual sound effects. This can give you a bit of information away, which is a bit of an unfair advantage, but right, put it in the game, so you might as well use it. It's not like it's from a third-party app that tells you how to track. Oh, this is a very good one to know. If you want to do more damage to camps early, since the pet damage scales with HP as well, especially that buff that they did last year, when tanks couldn't clear for anything, you should definitely go HP flat in your runes instead of HP scalings. This is really just an interesting ideology because it makes quadrant clears into ganks, for instance, significantly faster to execute. And what this allows you to do is to simply snowball games a little bit quicker and easier too. It's also really good if you're against another really fast farming jungler and you need a few extra seconds to get onto the map and you want to, match that tempo in some capacity. Even a Karthus can go for flat HP instead of scaling, as you can see, just to maximize that raw sequencing early on to really get an earlier level 6. It's also great if you want to do a red quadrant into gank early. Just a few seconds really does give you the benefit in a lot of games. Don't blindly go with your runes, my friends. Think deeply about what your game plans are. Think deeply about what you want to accomplish versus the enemy jungler, and from there, your entire game plan will fall into place. Oh, you can also somewhat kite the Rift Herald and deal more damage depending on the champion you are by simply avoiding it, as we mentioned earlier. I have honestly never really seen this next tip, but it is something you can do in these negative game states on the red side of the map. Simply, you can take a grub over the wall with specific champions that have at least 475 range to auto attack the grub, because you kind of need them to stay aggroed on you, not walk around the wall, in which case you simply get depression. And now you might be on wards, you get seen, you die, your life's over. And we can kind of add on to the tips here with that, is the first grub gives you that local max experience. The regular grub experience is shared amongst the rest of the team who are doing the grubs. Now, a lot of people think that the first grub you take from the camp gives bonus experience. So if you go ahead and steal the first grub and the whole enemy team collapses and you have to walk away, well, guess what? That's okay. You got the first one, so you got the bonus experience. That's not how it actually works. the bonus experience is tied to the pet, which means if you take the first grub and then the second grub, you're gonna get the bonus experience on the first one, you get regular experience on the second one, and if the enemy jungler shows up to take the third one, they also get bonus experience because it's the first one that they have taken from the perspective of their pet. This will work in any combination. That means if you take it first, second, or third, if it's the first grub you take from the camp, you get bonus experience, and any other grubs after that will be regular. The two grub spawns are individual of each other, so you get the bonus experience on the first grub on the first spawn, and you get the bonus experience on the first grub you take from the second spawn. Hopefully that clears it up, so if you are worried about losing the bonus experience, don't be. You can simply go and contest and take a second or third grub and walk away, provided you are not inting for them. And in crucial contests, whether or not you're doing this from behind the wall or you're doing this regularly, it can give you a level 6 if your pathing has been good. And obviously it's very important to understand that your sequencing, I made the first level 6 video, is always fundamentally sound. If you're gonna go red, go Krugs, Raptors, Wolves, Grump, Blue, ensure that when you're on the map thereafter, you're doing your scuttles, you're doing your ganks, whatever it may be, you're gonna have those Krugs, then Raptors, Wolves, and Grumps spawn as soon as possible. If you do that well and understand the grub experience there, and obviously have the right rune setup, you can really maximize a level 6 spike. And that's why it's really important to try and implement all of these tips, not at once, obviously focus on these things as you go, but it really will create a much more well-rounded experience for you. Oh, it's also very good to know this mechanic here. I don't think people understand this. Each Drake does different stuff. Of course, I am actually a coach, by the way, but I was doing a Chemtech Dragon the other day, and it was a little early on in the game, and I was struggling to actually finish it off. I didn't have the most gold reset. I was just opportunistically taking it. Nobody wanted to help me, and then I'm doing it, and I realized that this thing is hitting me more the less HP it has, and it's making it a lot harder to actually kill because now I'm starting to die. So while this is all stuff that I actually know, it's very easy to sometimes forget little micro mechanics that can give you these advantages or just make you aware of what's actually going on in the game. So in summary, Cloud Dragon just hits you a lot more than other dragons. Ocean Dragon decides to slow you to a crawl, and other dragons do not. The Mountain Dragon does a lot of damage in one hit, but it doesn't attack as often. Chemtech, as I mentioned, decides to become zombie the lower HP it goes, and the Hex Tech applies an AoE plus slow, and that's why that dragon can be a lot more irritating to take, and Infernal just simply does a lot more damage but at a regular attack speed cadence. And next up here we have the idea of the mites. We all talk about the grubs, but we don't talk about the mites. Now firstly, with many champions you can group the grubs and use your AoE abilities. We all know this, ha ha ha, very funny tip. But what people don't do is actually save those AoE abilities for the mites, because each one gives you 1 gold. In addition, if you have a cooldown mechanic based upon units killed, like Zyra's W, which has a 35% refund for every unit you kill, you want to try and ensure that you are using your Q on as many mites as possible to get more plants, so you can really do those grubs super quickly. It means more plants, it means you're not taking as much damage, it means you're actually dishing out more DPS, you can smite, you can do whatever you want, and you can walk away. So please ensure if you have the kit, snack those mites up as much as you can, get the free cash money gold, get your cooldown refunds on those abilities, those who have it, and really enjoy the full camp gift of the grubs. And finally, 2 more actual bonus, insane, outrageous, secret jungle mechanics you must know in order to become a jungle god. The Rift Herald is actually an abomination evolved scuttle crab. Think about that. That used to be a scuttle crab, so please snack those suckers up and actually use them past 20 minutes to clear vision around objectives. I'm always taking that as a support. Why? Junglers, snack it. And finally, his name is Lord Grumpulus Kevin Ribbiton of Croaksworth, so please treat him with the respect he deserves. Now, if you happen to be applying these tips but still struggling to come back in negative game states, I have the video that will solve all of your problems thusly.